welcome back to my sleep series. Let's talk about sleep. It's week 2. Today we're going to talk about naps. So naps are really, really important because they play part of that 24-hour cycle of sleep. So it's actually really vital that you understand your child's sleep needs in terms of naps, because that will guide you into kind of where they need to sit in terms of their daytime sleep. And so if you don't know kind of where you are, and it changes quite dramatically in the first year and it sort of then moderates after that, then please do get in touch. I have a really useful guide with sleep routines and sleep needs that will help you to sort of start that journey to understanding. So in all of this, it's all really about that kind of understanding of what the average is, because you can't definitively say my child is 6 months and therefore they're going to sleep at this time and this time and this time, because they could be different. They might have slightly different needs and they might kind of wake up at a different time every day. So it might be kind of more tricky for them to kind of work to a fixed and rigid regime, which is why my preferred way of looking at kind of naps and the daytime routine is quite flexible, in the sense that you need to kind of work on your child's awake time. So you firstly sort of identified how much sleep they need in the day, and let's take a 6-month-old as a kind of an example. And so that's sort of around about kind of 3 hours of sleep in the day. And if we look at then how we structure that day, you have to work it into how long they can stay awake for, because that's what we need to respond to. We need to respond to their tired signals. We need to respond to their body's natural sleep pressure that builds up over the day. So when they wake up in the morning, it's a case of thinking, okay, I know that my little one can stay awake for somewhere around 2.5 hours, maybe slightly longer in the morning. And then in the morning, sometimes their awake time is a little bit shorter than the average of the day. So you then sort of know that your nap is probably going to happen that amount of time after they wake up. And because they don't wake up at the same time every day, unless they do, and if so, that's still fine, then you'll know kind of when to schedule your first nap in. So you'll work from that point of waking up to then when the next nap's going to be. And so what happens then is you build that framework over the day, because then you allow your child to nap, and then once they've woken up, you then know how long they normally stay awake for until they need a second nap, and then perhaps the third nap after that. So that's really important to kind of get that flow of the day right, so that you're managing their tiredness levels, so they're not becoming overtired at any point, because that overtiredness is tricky to deal with in terms of settling, and it can also affect kind of what happens later on when you get towards bedtime and the nighttime stuff. So that's really important to do. So we've talked about how you need to manage their the amount of sleep they need in the day, and then how much awake time they can have. And really, if you're unsure about how to define that awake time, then yes, you can look at the averages, but look at your child's signs. Maybe just take a little note, like look for over a couple of days, when do they show that they're tired, or when do they look like they're kind of needing a sleep? And then kind of you can build a picture over there. As I said sort of earlier, sometimes that awake time can be a little bit shorter in the morning, and it can stretch out over the afternoon. So you might just want to be kind of more aware of that. But don't push past that certain point, because otherwise you get to the overtiredness. And then in terms of the nap, now some people are really strict about you must nap in the baby's room, they must sleep in darkness, they must be kind of always sleeping in that place. And you want to kind of know whether that's right for you, because from my point of view, it's all about understanding kind of how your life works, because maybe you don't kind of sit in a situation whereby you want to be in the house every day for all of your naps. And so therefore think about flexing it to what works for you. Outside air, vitamin D is really important to us adults as well as it is to children. So make sure that you kind of take that into account. And if one of those naps is on the go, or if you're having a difficult day and you don't want to handle the nap in the house, then go out and have that nap on the go. It's more important in the sense that your child sleeps than where they sleep. But when you're approaching the nap, think about having a kind of a wind down towards the nap. So not going from like a super active jumping around to like, right, now sleep, because that's a bit confusing for them. If you can have like a mini routine, a little bit of wind down, perhaps 5 minutes before the nap, and then go and set up for your nap, making sure that the room is dark if you're having it at home, putting your white noise on if you're using that, getting changed into some comfy clothes, something along those lines, maybe reading like a short story or having a song, saying good night to the day by just closing the curtains, and then looking to kind of start your nap. And often we find that there's a bit more resistance in the daytime in terms of nap. And that's often because they don't have the same sort of need to sleep in the day, because we have sleep pressure that builds up, but we don't have melatonin so much. And melatonin is the hormone that makes us feel sleepy, and that's not quite so regulated in the day. It's really strong around the bedtime, which is why it's easier for them to fall asleep at bedtime. But during the day, it's not quite so strong. So you might need to just think about how they settle and how much help they need. And I'm a big fan of kind of responding and making sure that your child needs are met, but making sure that also we're kind of helping them to sleep for the right amount of time. So if you need to help your child to sleep for nap time, brilliant, but just keep an eye on kind of how long they're sleeping for, to make sure that that help that you're giving them isn't causing them to wake after a short period of time. We'll talk about that in a second and how to handle it. So settling them down for kind of nap time and letting them sleep for the amount of time that you need them to. Now, it doesn't really matter to me whether where the sleep happens in the day. What matters is that you don't have these long awake times. So it could be that you have a longer morning nap and then a shorter lunchtime one, and then maybe a cat nap in the afternoon. It doesn't have to be this focus on the big lunchtime nap. You can try and manipulate that if you want by making a shorter nap to then force a lunchtime nap, but sometimes that just doesn't work. So look at what your child's showing you and try and build that pattern of the day that works for them. Now, when it comes to naps, one of the most common issues that we get is short naps. I have to say, some children just have short naps. That's kind of what happens. And sometimes we just need to accept that. So if your child has a short nap and is okay, like doesn't seem to bother them, then maybe it's not going to be something you can fix necessarily. And it might come in time. It might just be one of those kind of developmental stages, and their naps will lengthen out over time. But if your child wakes up, from a short nap, and they're kind of a bit more distressed, or they're a little bit grumpy from it, then maybe they did need to sleep for a bit longer. So firstly, check your timings, where they're going down perhaps a bit overtired, because that can cause them to wake, where they're getting lots of help to sleep and they're looking for that help to go back to sleep. Either way, my favourite method of trying to solve a short nap in the interim while you're trying to assess why it was happening is to just rush in to your child and try and resettle them. If you can try and resettle them, then hopefully you'll get them to go back to sleep, and they might just learn to link a bit more time together. But at the same time, maybe try and assess, like I say, what's happening with the short nap, and whether you need to extend the awake time, shorten the awake time, or look at kind of their sleep environment or settling. The other thing you can do kind of around a short nap is just to see if they're not grumbling too much, then maybe just leave them and see what happens. Will they then kind of resettle? Will they kind of just drift back off to sleep? And that's always a really powerful thing to do. And then the third thing to do is to look at kind of a wake to sleep model, because we can get into this habit of waking, this habitual waking that can happen. The body just isn't used to kind of extending the nap. So you go into them, you'd try and rouse them gently out of sleep, perhaps about 5 minutes before they'd normally wake, then get them to go back to sleep and see if that helps them to stay asleep for longer. So then you've got kind of 3 ways of dealing with what is a kind of a short nap. Now, naps can be the bane of everyone's life, and I want to give you the kind of reassurance that really don't stress out about them too much, because like I said before, the most important thing is that your child gets a good amount of sleep for them in the day. A sort of a tired child will always be a little bit grouchy probably, and they'll find it hard to settle down for sleep, perhaps for bedtime, and they might suffer more in the nighttime. So if you can focus on making your life easier in the day, if you're trying to make changes at nighttime, and that will help. If you need to really focus in on naps, it can take a little bit of time, but it's worth the effort to do so. And obviously, if you need any guidance or kind of want any help and tips on that, then you can get in touch and I will be happy to help you out. So that's my kind of little introduction to kind of naps and nap techniques and the most important things about naps to consider. So I hope that's helped you. If you have any questions, as ever, please do get in touch, and I will catch you soon for the next topic, which I will hopefully decide in a few days. All right, take care. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.